I am live. It's a little early in the morning to be live, but that's what the prompt said I am. So that's what I am. I'm live. Welcome to Amazing Scale Mother's Hobby Bench show in December. And December is that time of year you kind of want things from the spouse. And you turn into that kid that wants the things under the Christmas tree. And we're going to be talking about all the things you want, you wish for, and don't have because they don't really exist. And today we have joining us a pretty good diversity of people in the hobby. You know these folks by face and by name, and you can see where I'm aiming this. I got the creator, I got the builder, and I got the salesman. So we got some interesting things to talk about, and all of you in live chat, I hope, are going to participate. If you just lay out your wish list items as we go along, and I'll try to incorporate them. I'm going to be representing you in live chat because I have all the things I want because I got a 3D printer. And so we're going to go and we're going to try to do this too is in a chat. If you hear an idea, let's do the Roman voting system, thumbs up or thumbs down, and see where we can take this conversation. And I'd like to welcome our participants in right now. Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on. Definitely look forward to getting hammered with all these ideas, but it's definitely something I'll be able to take back to the office and, chew on, mull over, and kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, and we'll see if we can make some of these things happen as time goes on.
I think we might be talking about a lot of interiors, but that's just an opinion.
Maybe one or two. I can think of two interiors people will want to talk about, but we'll see what happens.
Sure. And just as a footnote, yesterday, Jamie on the Round 2 channel, he had a show with a couple of guests presenting some new kits. So go over there to Round 2 and take a look at that if you don't know what I'm talking about, especially if you're sci-fi. We'll talk about cars, cars and military if you want, but this is primary, Jamie's area is sci-fi, but he can probably answer some things about cars, or at least what's in a pipeline and stuff.
Sure.
Okay, and then we have Steve. Steve is the seller of these wares. He's the one who treats our addictions with the addiction item itself, and he's the man from Cult TV Man, and he's a great guy, and he will always sort of try to accommodate, depending on his mood, though, of course.
Yeah, well, it depends on what time you get me in the morning, too.
And I'm sure he's got some ideas, too, of what he wants to sell and make money on. And then, of course, we have Lou, the builder. And if you've watched...
I'll be representing the chaff today.
If you know his videos, he slaves over a build like nobody slaves over a build. And sometimes what we want could be meaning not even so much a kit, maybe accuracy or even fit. How about that? So let's get started. So who wants to go first with the wish list? Let's go with Lou. Lou, what's your first?
Oh, you put me on the spot. Well, I have the typical wish list, and Jamie, I don't want to take your time up with things I know because I know the answer is it's all about licensing and time and pipeline and resources. But I'm gonna put my top 5 wish list out there. Serenity, Orville, 350 Reliant, a 350 Classic D7, and a really accurate K7 space station.
Okay.
I mean, that's off the top of my head.
For some reason, I'm not hearing Lou at all.
Oh, and he's happy. Boy, is he happy about that.
StreamYard.
But I know your short answer is licensing.
Well, when it comes to the Orville, what did you mention? You mentioned the Orville. What was the other one? Serenity. Okay.
Yeah.
So and I've talked about this before in some interviews and talks and things like that, where when we go after a license, we have to be able to produce more than one kit. So we need to have either with Star Trek, you got obviously various enemies. You've got various other Federation ships. And when we see Orville, yeah, we get Orville every episode, not unlike Star Trek, where you get the Enterprise every episode. But we don't see strong returning ships or other featured ships.
Right. They've got a shuttle. They've got, well, like you did on the new 1999 stuff. They've got hand phasers and hand equipment that could be, done up that way.
Yeah, and that's all food for thought too. The fact that we're kind of getting into that space, and we'll see how the stun gun and Comlock do, and that will kind of indicate how much interest is there in that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Serenity is even more limited in that you pretty much have Serenity. I know there are a few other craft in there, but when we come down to what is worth tooling, we really have to look at what everyone wants collectively, not maybe necessarily just as a fan of a particular show or property. 350 Reliant, I'd love to do it. Somebody give me a plane ticket to France and get me hands-on access to the model so I can measure it. That's really what it will take to get that done. That in the space in our budget, tooling wise. Let's see, what else did you mention?
Classic D7 and K7 space station.
Okay, so the K7 is the same case as Reliant. To be able to tool it, I need data, and that's hard to come by. And D7, yeah, it's a possibility. So there you go. You're hitting 20%.
Okay. Thank you and good night. I'll be here.
Joining us right now is Jim. He's the paper modeler, and he can get anything he darn well pleases. And prints paper models, but I'm sure he's got some plastic kits in mind that he'd probably want to see. And then Randall, he's representative of an entire continent, which he's not really a part of. He's from the UK. So he's basically.
There's a English show there. We haven't drifted away yet.
Yeah, we drifted away. That's right. You guys are drifting away. That is for sure. And right now, yeah, the 350 Reliant popped in like immediately as well. And I have Hal here who says he's probably tired of his list of Ultra Probe and 148 Hawk. I'm not sure what the Ultra Probe and 148 Hawk is.
So those are both
1999.
Yep, Space 1999 options. Ultra Probe is, compared to the Eagle that we're used to, it's a very long ship. So to do that, we'd have to do it in smaller scales. Either 72nd would be, I think it's like 4 feet long. At 144 comes a more manageable, about 2 feet long. And that's actually subject-wise, it's a kit. It's the type of ship we like to do because it has a lot of repeating parts. So what that means from our standpoint is, if you need, there are these tanks kind of on it, tank-like shapes. So it needs 6 of those. So if we tool up one and inject that tool 6 times, we get what we need. So we're always better off when we've got a lot of repeating parts in a kit. So we get by on a lower tooling budget and it delivers larger kits.
Nice.
48 scale Hawk is definitely also something we're considering. It's on kind of, it's worked its way up towards the top of my to-do list.
No. How about you, Steve? What's on top of your list?
Well, I mean, a lot of what you guys have already covered here, the things I'd like to see, Serenity, Orville. I'd like to see some of the Star Wars subjects that haven't been done. Bandai's done a really cool job of getting a lot of kits out there, but they seem to have stalled a little bit, and they're fixated on the smaller scales, which are nice, and they're beautiful kits. They did a larger electronic X-Wing, which is a lovely kit, and I wish they would have done more along those lines. They incorporated lights and sound into it, which I don't know if necessarily added to the appeal of that particular kit. There's not a lot of fancy lighting in an X-Wing, but if you just seen some larger scale Darth Vader's TIE fighter or regular TIE fighters, there's definitely an audience for that. I would love to see something out of the new Mandalorian. The ship in that is pretty cool. At least it was up until the latest episode. And then some of the bigger Star Trek subjects, like you mentioned, things like a Reliant. There's a demand for the larger kits, but not necessarily a huge demand. I mean, you can't churn out a 3-foot model every 2 or 3 months and expect the hobby to continue to support it. And those are kind of some of the things on the forefront. There's some more obscure or lesser remembered subjects out there. The black hole. People love that ship. The kit that was done by, I don't remember, is it Revell or Monogram?
It was MPC.
MPC. Oh, you guys have it. It was not what the kit should have been. And it's not exactly accurate to what we saw on the screen either. But, that's an opportunity. The Buck Rogers Starfighters that Revell did, those were classics. The show, maybe less so, but people, spaceships. And you could say the same thing about Lost in Space. People really like the spacecraft or the hardware that's in shows like that.
Yeah.
That's just some of the more common things that we talk about that we'd like to see.
Okay. And I think I'm going to get my wish list here. You got a fan here, Lou. My wish list is have a model builder of all my own who can build all my models for me and do a pretty good job of it. And all it costs me is a pizza and a case of beer. Although I think my pay rate is not good enough for you.
I'm willing to work that cheap. I just don't know that you're going to like the results.
Moving forward, I have here a question for Steve. There was ever talk of adding figures and seats to the upcoming Spindrift reissue? That'd be interesting. There was been talk.
I'm working with round 2 on this. Thank you, Jamie. And the idea was to put out the kits pretty much as is. I mean, once you start making changes, you start adding up costs. And we added some figures to the Cyclops and Chariot. The thing about that is they were slightly larger than what you get with the Spindrift, so you could reasonably do a resin figure that didn't look like a blob. And I don't know that actually increased sales or appealed to people. So with the Spindrift, we're upgrading the decals on it and adding the backdrop just to kind of plus up the kit a little bit in a way that we can afford to do it.
Cool. How about you, Jim?
A couple of things. I think Randall and I sort of discussed this a couple weeks ago, was that we have an issue with model aircraft in that we either are lacking pilots, or the pilots that are supplied, you can't pose them properly. So if we had properly sculpt pilot figures that were posable, to a certain extent, so we could glue them in position, and that for model aircraft, that would be a huge addition to our builds.
Yeah. So what era are you talking about? Or all eras? Or
all eras. The issue's right across the board. They're either really super ugly and something we call them clunk monkeys type models for pilots, or non-existent.
Yeah, even into the sci-fi stuff, X-wing pilots, B-wing pilots, whatever pilots that come along. Sorry, Jim, I interrupted you there.
That's okay. Yeah. The other thing that I'm kind of interested is I've always been interested in cars at the turn of the last century, 1908, 1910, the early stuff. And it's almost a non-existent era as far as model cars are concerned. Used to be quite a few years ago, there were quite a few. Now all you can get pretty well that's out there are all Model T Ford variants, and that's only one slice of a larger component of the antique cars at the time that were made, and you can't hardly find anything going on.
So let me ask you this: in our Lindbergh tooling bank, we do have a bunch of turn of the century era cars.
Yeah,
they're 32nd scale. I know the majority of car builders are 124th and 125th builders. Would a 32nd scale kit kind of fill your wish list there?
Yeah, it would fill, because most of these are like a one-time subject, so a larger scale on that is perfectly fine. But like I said, the biggest thing in the market is it's just total unavailability on most cases.
Right. And on subjects like that, it's a little bit harder for us to judge because, okay, there's nothing out in the market for us to be able to see any sales reaction to.
Yeah.
So that tells. So for us, it's a question of, does that mean nobody wants it, or does that mean that the market is starving for it? So that's something we could consider to possibly get a couple of those turned out and just see how they do.
Yeah.
Okay, there's Steve. You got him back. Yeah, all you got to do is, if you fall out, just click onto that link and you'll.
Yeah, I hope I got everybody's audio back now.
Oh, is that what? Yeah, sometimes you do need to pass out to get that. Yeah. Okay, of course, Victorian, of course, wants the Firefly for sure, and Liam came up with an interesting idea, and this is something that's been in my mind for a long time. My favorite shuttle of all Star Trek has to be the Delta Flyer. That would be nice. A nice, sort of like the same scale as the TOS. I think that'd make an interesting pair. Is just my opinion. So that would be something to talk about if you want to. I don't think that.
I'm remembering what they used to call the soap dish shuttles on Next Gen. I think Sternbach called it a soap dish once. It was all rounded and it looked like a bar of soap.
Yeah.
But yeah, any of the shuttles from you do the Vulcan shuttle. I would love to see a travel pod. I would love to see.
There was also the one with the loop. That's not even a shuttle. That's actually a ship, a science ship with the long. It looked like a long.
Like the Oberth.
The Oberth.
Yeah, the Grissom, but a larger Grissom. They do a small, a 1,000 scale Grissom and Bird of Prey combo set, but a 537 Grissom or something like that might be nice.
Yeah.
But any of the shuttles that they use, the larger shuttles that they used in the movies after 2, it was like a standard shuttle that they even used way up in Next Gen. Had the back door that opened up, like the big
hatchback.
Yeah.
Like a shuttle pod or something like that.
Yeah, but it was a larger shuttlecraft, but it was a Next Gen shuttlecraft with an interior would be nice.
There's I think Jamie, what's interesting is, and I noticed last night when you introduced the 1,000 scale Voyager, is somebody did mention it that we got a whole set, a nice set, or at least a developing set that's nice. That's 1,000 scale and a 2,500 scale, because there are some modelers, and that's probably tooling wise and probably production wise, that's probably really easy. Well, not easy, but cheap enough to do, right. and get like a series like that, and you can even like you have already with the Discovery. I think it's a 2,500 scale, if I'm not right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We put
yeah. So this concept of scale, I think, is in my mind all the time, because I have this weirdness about uniformity when it comes to my models. It's like, when you were a kid, you had your G.I. Joe heroes, and they were all the same scale. You did that, and even the action figures of Star Wars, you did your own little battle as a kid. You did your battle scenes and stuff like that because everything was all the right scale.
Mhm.
I think with that, I think you guys are doing a really good job on it, but it's just a matter of maybe expanding on that is my thinking. Anyhow, however you guys are talking about expanding, I'm okay with.
So let me ask you this. I mean, beyond what we've offered in 1,000 scale and what we've announced with the Voyager, what other ships do people want to see in 1,000 scale? I know we got a lot of requests for Katinga, and then I talked about the Enterprise D yesterday. But beyond that, what else? What else is viable?
D is pretty large, but I think the Vulcan ships. I think Vulcans and the Romulans need better represented. I guess.
Well, the D and E would both be wonderful at 1,000 scale because the D would be huge, and the E would be nice and long, but larger than the one that's available now, and something that's got that complex of a paint scheme on it really needs to be done big to be done well, unless you're gonna cover the whole thing with decals.
I think for 1,000 scale D, you might be able to even kind of think of this.
As Darwin mentions there, a cutaway D in 1,000 scale would work nicely. We would get an awful lot more parts at least.
Yeah,
we don't have the part count quite a bit.
That would be a photo etch heaven.
Heaven or the other.
Yeah,
Maybe we could do that if we did it at 350 scale. We could do that.
It was. I think it was talked about in the reveal last night. A set of ships in 1,000 scale from the First Contact movie, the Steam Runner, etc., would probably sell well.
Yeah, we talked about, somebody asked about the Akira in 1,000 scale, and I mentioned we're probably getting away from that because we see a lot more appealing things to do before we would get to that. But looking at it in 2,500 scale, where it's a manageable, less than a foot long, and doing the other ships in that era in that movie, those are viable ideas.
Well, if you've got a 1,000 scale Defiant already, as soon as you said that, I had a picture of a printed backdrop that has the Borg on it, but then you have stands with the various ships that you put in front of it. And if you're trying to do the Battle of Wolf, that battle, you could pose the ships in front of this backdrop that was the Borg cube, so you don't have to worry about making the kit out of that.
Right.
But you could have your multitude of ships all around the front of it.
That'd be a bit like there was an old AMT kit of the Enterprise incident where you got two D7s and the Enterprise. Behind it.
Yeah,
I remember right now.
Yep, that's one of the few kits we've not brought back yet.
Yeah, probably good reason too.
Yeah.
How about you, Randall? Do you have anything on the top of your wish list? It could be anything. It doesn't have to be sci-fi.
Most of my wish list has already been mentioned by Lou up here. 2,500 K7. Would that be doable? There's a lot of repeatable parts in it.
May I add, you did the Brady Bunch point very well.
And when we were talking about interiors, obviously, get the shuttle interior right, please. And while we're on interiors, how about one for the runabout?
Yeah, I've had several people mention that, and most of those people are people that have developed interiors already. So,
yeah,
and that's something that I've thought about. And when I go to set up my tooling budget, and I think, okay, we're going to do a reissue of the Runabout. Do we want to put an interior in it? I just always end up taking the money that would go into that and putting it into something else. There's just always a better something bigger and more newsworthy, I guess, to put it into.
Well, I think you also have to.
Sexier to put out a new kit than to add to an existing kit.
It depends.
But I also think you have to keep in mind what sales will be, and when you start looking at kits that sell well, it's going to be your main ships, your Enterprise types, your Reliant types. And so do you tool a more popular kit, or do you spend your money on a more obscure kit? And I think, when you look at sales wise, things like this new Enterprise, this new Galileo, those things sold incredible. I mean, they're good subjects. They had broad appeal. They're things that people wanted. When you start getting into the lesser popular kits, your Vorchas, your Galores, even your Runabouts, you see a falling off there. And fans want the main ships more than anything. And I think you'd be better off tooling a larger Enterprise D, like you're suggesting, or another capital ship, if there are any left, to appeal to the modelers that are looking for this stuff.
Yeah. Ultimately what it comes down to for me in my decision-making process, a lot of times it's just a process of elimination and putting one kid up against another. Or maybe I see 3 or 4 kits that I look at them just without really digging into them. Okay, they're about the same size, about the same amount of detail. I think the tooling's going to be the same. It just comes down to, okay, which of these do I think is in the most demand?
This is why I said the scale set. I mean, if you're running those scale sets, it would make it easier for you to say, oh, well, it's sort of like the yardstick. 2 inches comes after 1 inch, and 3 inch comes after 2 inch. And if you just get into the more what we're calling as obscure, I think that you're in with, say, a 1,000 scale Jem'Hadar, because that came up on a chat too, a Jem'Hadar ship. I don't know what scale they would be in relation to. 1,000 scale will be in relation to like a 1,000 scale Enterprise, for an example. But let's face it, the Jem'Hadar is a very one of the more obscure things. But I think in some sense, the shuttle was the TOS shuttle is relatively offbeat, because you're doing starship, and you're doing it, all the big stuff with the Klingons and with Romulan. The Romulan ship is out there, and even the Ferengi is out there on a certain scale. So, in my opinion, the shuttle was somewhat off on another line of shuttles, and maybe deciding what scale you want to do shuttles, or deciding what you're going to do with 1,000 scale or 2,500 scale if it's just too big. I've even heard some people, we need a V'ger. I mean, even a 2,500 scale V'ger would be enormous on your basic. So I think that Steve's got a point there. Is what I'm trying to get to, is that you've got to, for him to be able to sell it, they got to be popular enough to make him carry it too. Just the same.
That we'll carry it.
You carry it, but you want to make money, and that's that. There's no problem. There's not. I do not fault you for that, because
let me just throw out there the Scorpion, the McKee, the Kazon Torpedo. I mean, those kits were all Star Trek. They're all like the Kazon and the McKee were current Star Trek at the time those kits came out. The Scorpion is actually a beautiful little kit, but by the time it actually got out, nobody cared. The thing people are looking for as well is, will these kits have legs? Will it be something that they can sell, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? If you're going to invest the money in tooling, that's something he's taking into consideration as well.
Yeah. We've said from the beginning, when we started developing the 1350 Klingon Katinga, that we would kind of measure the performance of that and decide whether to do the Kronos 1 version later on. And immediately people come and ask, okay, are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? We got aftermarketers that want to do parts and things like that. And that, when I see aftermarketers wanting to do something exactly as we would like to do, if all things are, work out, that's when, we have to take a little action there. But I don't want to get into that. But so when we set out to and say, if things work out, we want to do the Kronos 1. It does take years for us to measure the performance of the Katinga kit first, and that's why we can't, when we bring out the Katinga, we can't say for sure, yes, we're going to do Kronos 1 at, on this date. So here we are a couple of years into Klingon Katinga sales. I'll be able to go and look at it, see how it's done, and decide if or when we're going to do the Kronos 1.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to maybe veer the conversation in a little different, more of a different direction here. Wayne, and patient with me. 35 scale or 25 scale? Well, 35 scale, I think. I don't know. But this is for the AMT guys who do the cars and stuff. And I have to agree, some British cars would be interesting. Because there was a Moonraker shuttle put out.
Mm-hmm.
Was that you guys?
Yeah, we used the Lindbergh tool and rebranded as AMT.
Oh, okay. So I'm an Aston Martin, since we're talking about 007.
Right.
Those kinds of things would be of interest to me because Aston Martins are such amazing cars, and it speaks volumes of British aesthetics.
Yeah, I've not been in on those conversations. I know whether or not we would tool an Aston Martin was discussed, and I honestly don't know if one is in development or not. But when we talk about Aston Martin specifically, it's part of, it's attached to James Bond. It's James Bond's car, just like the Batmobile is Batman's car.
That's true.
So there's kind of more universal appeal when it comes to those, or movie cars. So that's something that we'd be more likely to do. But to just broadly say do more British cars, ask the guys that live in England how they like buying our sci-fi kits. They're going to tell you price is double because of the cost of imported, the duties and everything involved, the difference in the value of the currency and things like that. So we would be less likely to do that than say some like Revell, who's already in Europe and they can deliver the product more cost effectively.
Yeah, it's always been a sore spot, and I think Randall would agree that when it comes to Star Trek or sci-fi that Round 2 puts out, it's it's a fortune to get a kit in.
Can I throw in there while you're talking James Bond? Batman. That's something that has had broad appeal. We've done it. You guys have done Batmobiles, and Mobius has done Batmobiles. And one of the things that a lot of people ask for that nobody's gone ahead and dived in on is a Batcopter.
Mm-hmm. I've considered it, and the vehicle still exists, and it's geographically not that far from us that we could actually have access to it. So this is definitely something that I should probably give more credence to the idea.
Well, there's also the Black Beauty, as well. So
yeah,
I mean, this is definitely it's really funny because I don't know which one of the car models it was, Lou. I got you built a car, and when you showed me what car it was, I'm like, that's not a car.
It had wheels, it was a car.
I think it might have been a Batmobile.
It had wheels, it was a car.
Wheels and a steering wheel, yeah, it's a car.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Going from cars back kind of like to science fiction vehicles, but I know Mobius have had their Nautilus kit out for quite some time with the ton of photo etch that you throw at it. Any chance of persuading Disney to release the license for their Nautilus?
Oh, gee, they need the money.
With the election 144 scale?
That'd definitely be a great kit to do.
Mm.
And the biggest hurdle is penetrating Disney.
Yeah.
To get an audience with them, to be able to bring as much money as they're going to need. That's another kit that I know everyone loves, and I would love to do it. So if the stars align somehow, sign me up.
Well, I do know that there was at one point one of the companies out there had a license negotiated for a Nautilus, and it was a money deal that killed it. They just could not put up the money that Disney wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's almost like what Jim and I were talking about several weeks ago. Elon Musk is not interested in doing kits for the Falcon, his rocket series, his Falcons and his Starship. So.
Yeah, I know Tom Lowe that owns Round 2 was interested in that, and I don't know if he ever actually got an audience or a call back or anything on it.
Yeah, but I think there is a desire for model, real space model rockets and stuff. As the technology is developing, as private industry is moving to space, I think that's going to become more of a desire. And I think even re-releases of the 60s, the Apollo program.
Yeah. We have so many new vehicles out there that are not represented at all. Most of the models are all of the 60s and 70s era spacecraft, and there's nothing of the newer stuff, any of the Arians or even the Russian newer vehicle, that there's no representation at all. And we got other things coming online. We've got Dream Chaser coming online, probably potentially a launch of Dream Chaser for the end of 2021. So that's not represented. And you've got even India building a crewed vehicle now. So all these things are becoming in the news and visible to people and that type thing.
Yeah, I find the real space people similar to almost like Armor. They're very particular. They like their genre. They really like their genre. And I don't want to say particular, but I think they're really into their genre. There was something here again. Since we're off the beaten path a little bit from sci-fi and Star Trek, is Flintstones. I was just thinking that because I was going to change my T-shirt to. When I first bought I bought my first 350 refit off of Amazon way back in the year and they sent me the Mystery Machine. I sent the Mystery Machine back. I shouldn't have because I'm a big fan of Scooby Doo. I didn't wear my Scooby Doo T-shirt today.
To be honest, I never thought that we would get to the point that we did the wacky races.
Yeah.
It seems like they're being well received, so they do well. Yeah, there's a chance we could do the AMT Flintstones too.
Okay. And there was also Liam. Not Liam. I'm sorry, it wasn't Liam. Where is he? Getting the Flint. Gosh, I was so overwhelmed with my T-shirt that I'm not wearing. Space Talk, Carwin said Space Talk, and I gotta say that's we're gonna leave that to the scratch builders to do.
Liam points out, I think it was Liam, the Space 1999 laser and Comlock will do well. I believe Trek equivalent should be in your list. Was that the one you were looking for, Jack?
Shoot, it was something. Oh, Thunderbirds.
Oh.
Ken Skeffington and Randall seem to be the big fans of Thunderbirds.
There are a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're going to hit a big audience with that because what Randall's getting me hooked on. I'm more of an aesthetics kind of guy and how things are engineered, but he's really got me hooked on some of the things that I don't know. I told you earlier, I'm not good in sci-fi. I heard of them, but I never seen them.
Fireball XL5 is one that comes up with Thunderbirds.
Yeah, Fireball.
All the time.
Yeah, it hasn't been a Fireball XL5 model in decades. The other was Stingray's another one. There was a model, but again, we're talking like 40, 50 years ago that model was available.
I think about the only model that is available, and even then it's like at collector prices. There's no interior whatsoever. It's the things that so you can play with it in the bath more than actually make a presentable model.
Yeah.
So yeah, a new Stingray would be nice. Yeah.
Mark on a chat is all enthusiastic as soon as Thunderbirds was mentioned.
So
There's a huge following for it.
Yeah, and with the success we've had of Space 1999, it's definitely a license I've considered. So I've looked into it, and what I found was, okay, if we're talking about scale, what scale would we do these ships in? Because they're all drastically different size-wise.
Yeah.
So it's not a case where what I found was it's not a case where I can decide, okay, we'll do them all on this certain scale and make them so you can put them all together at the same time, because they're just so disparately, the size is so different for each vehicle. But it's not to say that's a hurdle that can't be overcome. And it's probably something we should have been taking more seriously. It's not something we're pursuing, but something I'll take back to the office and we'll talk about some more.
What about the immediate predecessor to 1999, the UFO series? Is there anything there? I'd love to get one of those interceptors with the one missile on the front.
The show's definitely got some cool vehicles to it, but it's kind of the same case, and then it's also the thing of exposure, and that's kind of what the hurdle was for me to get into Space 1999 was the property wasn't getting a lot of exposure, but the market was starved for product, so we brought it out and it's done well. So,
I'm just thinking about your edict about the repeating parts. The UFOs themselves were, basically repeating parts. They would be a fairly simple tool, I'd imagine.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing along with since we're talking more retro kits again, the older concept vehicles, the stuff we saw of 50s type sci-fi ships, the Von Braun style stuff. I know there's some tooling out there that exists. You guys were going to do that 5-pack of vintage kits at one point. I think that there's interest in seeing some of those again. I know Atlantis has just announced one of the older moon ships that Revell had done is coming back out again next year, and that I've already gotten quite a bit of excitement generated for that kit of all the 40 plus things that Atlantis announced the other day. It's that one kit that sticks out and stands out.
Mm.
But even the classic movie sci-fi ones, like an original like Buck Rogers ship or Flash Gordon ship, stuff like that, from the serial days.
Right.
Carwin said something here. This is very interesting about video games. What do you think of? What does everybody think of this market? If there's a possibility of it.
There's 2 Halo kits out there right now that Revell put out, and in all honesty, I can't give them away.
Carwin.
That might speak to the demographic. I mean, the crowd that builds these products we're talking about. I mean, look at the 6 people we've got on screen. We don't have any young bucks talking about this.
Yeah.
So there's when we've done our surveys and stuff at Wonderfest, I can see where the cutoff is age-wise of who's building and who's not. And it used to be, and I've talked about this before, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but it used to be that our attitude was, okay, we got to get the dads to get the kids to build. And we're at the point now we've got to get the grandfathers to get the kids to build. We've skipped a generation has fallen out of model building. So
the one thing that's bringing them back is Gundam. I mean, Gundam has a broad appeal to younger model builders. It is a thriving market, but it's certainly not the same market as the Star Trek and the Star Wars and the Apollo builders. I sell a lot of plastic models, but I don't sell much in Gundam. My customer base doesn't buy Gundam, but then there's plenty of other people that I talk to in the industry where they can't keep Gundams on the shelves.
Yeah.
And they can't keep them in their warehouses. So, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a generational thing here, but it's something that can be tapped into in some way, shape, or form. Gundam, however, is a unique brand that seems to sell itself. It'd be more difficult for round two to come in and say, hey, we're going to do something like the Gundams.
Mm-hmm.
You can't capture lightning in a bottle twice.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, the thing that Bandai has going for them is they're a huge company. They've got an excellent group of engineers, obviously. They've got all the technology down. They formulated their plastic to a T. And round two is a team of 35 people.
Yeah.
And it's just a difference in scale as far as, how far we can take the limits of the product we're selling.
And you'd have to wonder if it's something that because they're all pretty much there, they can get it to market quicker while it's still fresh on television or whatever, and the kids can go to watch the TV, see it there, watch it online, and then see the same thing at the store and pick it up, as opposed to it's a year down the line for us.
This is the thing you run into, because both Bandai and Kandashiya both get the designs for the new Gundams in the series before the show was even aired.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a synergy there, which brings me to my question. I was trying to formulate, Jamie, about what do you do, and I'll give you two prominent examples. What do you do with Discovery and Razor Crest when the ships change on television?
Yeah.
It's like the model you've built is no longer accurate to what is being presented. Do you say, oh, well, we have, that's that, or do you go back and shake
your E behind there's a prime example?
Yeah, if you shake
there's
your
like
fist at the
there's
creators
like 3
and say, why did
versions
you do
of it.
that?
There's 3 versions of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, with E, the differences are not nearly as noticeable as what they've done with Discovery. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I see what they've done with Discovery, and I start getting a headache. I start to shake my head. Why did they have to break themselves off?
And what they did with the poor Razor Crest.
I think they just do these things just to torture model producers and model builders. They know we want to build models of these things. They know that people want to produce models of these things. So why make it easy for them?
Yeah, and it's like, okay, now we're going to ask the modeler to figure out how to suspend the nacelles away from the rest of the model, and
so when
I like them,
you're not making it easy for us to like you.
Yeah. I mean, with Discovery, that's the one show I can speak to, because I've seen the design. I've heard something happen in the Razor Crest. I've not watched Mandalorian yet. But with Discovery, with us, okay, we've put some money in the tooling. The license has a lifespan, so we're gonna get to the point where we're gonna have to decide: are we gonna re-sign? And if we re-sign, will we be able to maintain cover the guarantee with what we've done already, and maybe add 1 or 2 more kits to it, or do we kind of just let it be? What we've done is what was done, and then maybe look at it again further down the road, and maybe come back and do it again. But now with them changing the ship, that adds a whole another factor to the equation of, okay, now they've done something new, and we can do it in 2500 scale, and you'll be able to see the 2 different versions of Discovery side by side, just like you can with the TOS Enterprise and the refit. And we've always talked about doing a larger, maybe 1000 scale Discovery, which is still a viable idea. I wasn't racing to do that, but now that they've done a more, I don't want to say more interesting ship, but a more intricately designed ship with a lot of lighting effects and things like that, to do that can only really be accomplished maybe, nicely in a larger scale. So it just adds if everything that I have to think about when they do something like that. It's just like a jaw punch. But
yeah, and it's almost like, well, you want to hang around and wait to see if this sticks before you invest any time in it.
oh, for sure.
There was also a comment, and I couldn't find it.
It's easy to go back and say, okay, let's do one from Buster Crab's era, because there's no chance they're going to go back and change that. It's done.
That's true. So I'm just I can't find the comment. It was doing a monkeys mobile. That brings up a whole other genre. That would be, what's his name? Barris.
Yeah. I think we put out the monkey mobile a couple years ago.
Yeah, and the Munsters coach and the coffin rod. And, yeah, those things are always kitschy when it comes to the. I like those. So those are a lot of fun to build. And George, if you bought a Gundam as your first kit, that will turn you against modeling.
I don't know about that.
It took me 2 kits to figure out the philosophy that Gundam kits use in model building. So it is certainly a whole different way of thinking of model building, because you're doing a lot of underlying things and coming out to the. It's interesting. It certainly keeps you involved. But there was one gentleman says that how about getting some retro things in, such as no, that's not it.
That's a good question for Steve. Would you rather sell 1 350 scale kit or 10 12500 scale kits?
It's easier to pack 1 than it is to pack 10. A variety is what I like, though. I mean, people don't always want to just buy one thing. They want to buy multiple things. So if there's several smaller kits available, those add up pretty quick. I don't have a preference there, though, but I do like the discussion of the figure kits too. That's something that we've talked a lot about spaceships, but the monster stuff is it's cyclical. The Aurora monsters about every 10 years seem to make a little bit of a comeback. But once you start getting beyond the Aurora monsters, figure kits tend to fall off pretty quick. The superhero kits don't do as well as Frankenstein and Dracula for some odd reason. At least that's been my experience.
Had the little yellow submarine too, going.
Like Richard Steller's question, what about Beatles figure collections for builders?
Yeah.
Something the same way as what was done with the Batman figures, I presume. Thing is, which Beatles figures would it be as they were at the height of their fame when they were doing the stadium tours in the States?
Sergeant
Pepper, Lonely Hearts Club Band, or
Polar Lights did
Yellow Submarine,
Sergeant Pepper cartoons, the cartoon page.
Or all of them.
Polar Lights did the series of the Sergeant Pepper cartoon figures, and yes, we had to have cooperation with the Beatles, but I think that was run through probably Warner Brothers, if I remember right. No, that's not true. It was the same licensor as it was Live Nation. But okay, so 2 things, especially specifically on Beatles. I believe it was Revell that did a series of the classic, the kind of the early Beatles, right? I'm guessing those tools were. I'm guessing they were destroyed if they weren't.
No, they exist.
Okay, well,
Revell had them, and now Germany's got them.
Okay, so they still exist. So write your letters to Revell. They'll be.
I would almost want to see the cartoon
quicker than I will. And again, even though Beetles are popular worldwide, if Round 2 were to build Beetles kits and try and ship them to Europe, it's going to get more pushback on the cost.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of considerations to make. I think we've already talked about. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
For us, figures just generally don't perform well enough to warrant doing new tooling.
Mm-hmm.
I know Mobius has done a lot, and it seems to work for them. I'm not sure why we can't get it to work, but we just haven't. So we've kind of stepped away from that segment of the market.
You know, sales numbers, figures are not as popular as hardware. I could sell 10 new Star Trek kits for every new Batman kit figure kit that comes out. I mean, it's just there's a huge difference in that, and I can understand why you would back off on the figures a little bit. Some of it, like with Mobius, the stuff they did was a lot of what Frank really wanted to see kits of, and you know, that's a driver too. Is what the company owners or the people behind the scenes want to do, and which licenses they want to pursue, and things like that. Yeah, I still think a good Alien figure might do well at some point. That's an iconic figure, and it's still popular. Aliens and Predators are probably the most dominant sci-fi figures in the garage industry. It's like somebody puts out a new one of those, and people's eyes roll. Oh, so do we need another Predator?
I would add Godzilla to that.
Sorry?
I said I would add Godzilla to that list too. It's like you talk about your classic monsters, your Frankensteins, your Draculas, and then the new crop would be Godzilla, Alien, Predator. It's not the people monsters so much; it's the creature monsters. Creature from the Black Lagoon, that sort of thing.
With the Aliens franchise, you could still do the vehicles, the dropship, the Sulaco, the armored personnel carrier.
Yeah, we had that license for a while, and there was a lot I was intending to do, and in the end, we just had a budget crunch that didn't allow it to happen. It's kind of unfortunate.
I can say that the Godzilla figures, the Rodan, the Ghidorah, those have actually been performing pretty well for me.
Okay.
It was nice to see those come back.
Ultraman,
that'd be cool. We can see that.
Oh, there's a whole series of Ultraman. There's not just one Ultraman.
Anime, yeah, there's a lot of anime. Somebody even brought up it was Bob who brought up the Racer X.
Yeah.
That would be what
Speed Racer. Yeah.
And Blade Runner. Justin, I put your comment up there, but it's a paragraph. Blade Runner cars. Yeah, I think that's interesting too. Blade Runner is particularly he's talking about. I know it's meant a new license, but Blade Runner's 40th anniversary is 2022, and some of the most famous sci-fi vehicles. I have to agree. When it comes to sci-fi vehicles, Blade Runner has really done there is a following for that for sure.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of Blade Runner.
Yeah,
I was actually working with Mobius several years ago to try and get that license, and the people at that time that controlled it absolutely didn't want to talk to anyone. That's why I think you saw the kits in Japan that came out that weren't licensed.
Oh yeah, Fujimi.
Yeah.
The police car, and did they do we call them Deckard's car as well, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Deckard's car and the police car were actually the same kit, just repackaged.
I didn't realize that.
One had bubbles on it.
Well, this is coming up on an hour. I'm going to end with this one. Richard's so funny. Why don't you blow up something we used to do as kids? Yeah, there you go. Have a little spot to clip in some M80s and firecrackers, blow them up. And
BB guns.
And BB guns.
You guys had so much more fun blowing things up with kids than we did here.
So I promised Jamie it'd be an hour, and we got to do this again, guys. This has been amazing. I'm actually impressed with how it turned out. I just thought it'd be a lot of, complaining, but no, if you guys been following the live chat, they're coming up with some amazing ideas to do, and to giving everybody here, like Steve and Jamie and even Lou and the rest of us, an idea where the trends are going, what we're thinking. And I think that's what this whole show was about, to really commiserate on such things.
Let me chime in on that. It definitely has been a great interaction, and with an absence of Wonderfest this year, this kind of conversation is great to have. It is reinvigorating for me. It gives me things to think about, chew on. Maybe an old idea I had that is kind of weeded away because I've got other things that distracted me from it. So definitely a good conversation. Thanks for letting me come on, and I'm with you. Thanks to the chat for participating the way they have.
Thanks for the idea. It was a couple of months ago in October. They said, "Why don't we do this?" I'm like, "Really?" And it's not good even at the time. And I'm surprised. And thank you, Lou, for participating too. There was a question I was going to turn on you, but maybe we can do that next time, because
let me take a second or two to praise Jamie for what he said yesterday about the 1999 props, and props to you for the props. The fact that you're engineering for the aftermarket is astounding. When you said we're going to make these parts in the stun gun clear, so if people want to put different colored LEDs in there, they could. Now, yes, that's something you don't have to do, but we appreciate that you do that. And when you're talking about making the screen in the comm lock, well, I know somebody's going to put an LCD screen in there. It's like 50 years ago, no one would have thought of that. We'd have a big cable running out the back. But the fact that you're already planning for that, and you don't have to, give us all the bells and whistles, we'll find them, but making your kits engineered for that from the beginning, that shows a level of understanding of your audience that I don't think other companies have.
Yeah, that's something we should have talked about a little more too today. Maybe we can do that another time, as aftermarket stuff and getting to Lou's world there.
Right. Because there was a question you had that I turned on you, because there is a lot of changing, like that one genre that changes from one season to the next. Yeah. And if you're doing masks, you got to keep up with that in a way.
It's a little bit easier for me than I don't have to, grind a metal tool and send it to China. So it's a lot easier for me. But that's why I feel for you, Jamie, on something like that, because you have an investment. You have all of this, out of pocket, and then all of a sudden they go, let's do this, and that whim changes everything down the line to the poor schlubs that are putting the models together, and we're getting out our paint and going, well, I guess I got to repaint that,
And thanks, Jim, for participating too. You had some good ideas with the old time cars, and Randall the same. And thank you for joining us. And Steve, it's the first time we interacted as such. It's been a joy for me.
I appreciate you bringing me in.
Yes, I when Jamie thought of it, I got to think of these areas: design, the banker, and of course the salesman. You guys know where the sales are, and you know what's trending in your shop. And I'd like to thank everybody, every single last one of you in the live chat and participate. I hope I did well enough for you guys and represented your comments and your wish list. And next month is going to be January. It's going to be, amen, 2021. We can put this current year behind us, and that it looks like January 2nd is what I'm kind of looking at, but it could be later. Just stay tuned to the Amazing Scale Modelers groups, both on MeWe and on Facebook. You'll see the announcement there. And everybody has been joining the channel. Thank you. And if you have any ideas, I will be more than happy to entertain them. Leave your comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you all, and you all have a happy modeling day.
See you guys.
Good day.
Good night.